Hello, my name is Lee Williams, and I am the Director of Contracts and Compliance and the General Counsel for the Galveston County Health District. Today I will be presenting on child abuse, intimate partner violence, and domestic abuse, and elder abuse. This is a training that is required for all of our district health employees. I always like to start my presentations with positive quotes that help set the framework and remind us of how important our job responsibilities are. The first quote is by one of my favorite philosophers, legal philosophers, Cicero. "The safety of the people shall be the highest law." The next quote is from our first African-American Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall. "Where you see wrong or inequality or injustice, speak out, because this is your country. This is your democracy. Make it, protect it, pass it on." It's important for us to remember that we are the first line of defense for many people in our community. So recognizing the signs of abuse and being trained is very critical to our roles. With that being said, this is our agenda for today. We will go over background information and why this training is important, definitions, recognizing signs of abuse and questions to ask, and then we'll go over information and resources. Background. Why is this important? Well, first, it's the law. Texas law says anyone who thinks a child or person 65 years or older or an adult with disabilities is being abused, neglected, or exploited must report it to the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services Abuse Hotline. A person who reports abuse in good faith is immune from civil or criminal liability. However, anyone who does not report the suspected abuse can be held liable for a misdemeanor or a felony. A professional, such as yourselves, must report suspected abuse or neglect of a child within 48 hours of the suspected abuse. And a professional cannot delegate this duty to anyone else in order to make the report. You must make the report. Remember, also, this is important because you may be the only person who can help that individual. What is abuse? This is the definition. Abuse is mental, emotional, physical, or sexual injury to a child or person 65 years or older, or an adult with disabilities, or failure to prevent such injury. What is neglect? Child neglect is failure to provide a child with food, clothing, shelter, and/or medical care, and or leaving a child in a situation where the child is at risk of harm. Adult and elder neglect is defined as a person who is 65 years or older, or a disabled adult, which results in starvation, dehydration, over or under medication, unsanitary living conditions, and lack of heat, running water, electricity, medical care, and personal hygiene. Major types of child and elder maltreatment are defined as follows: physical abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and finally financial abuse, which only applies to elders. We'll go over that at the end. Child physical abuse indicates physical injury that results in substantial harm to the child, or the genuine threat of substantial harm from physical injury to the child. The physical injury, ranging from minor bruises to severe fractures or death, can result from punching, beating, shaking, kicking, biting, throwing, stabbing, hitting, burning, choking, or otherwise harming a child in any physical manner. Such injury is considered abuse regardless of whether the caretaker intended to hurt the child. Elder physical abuse can result in unexplained burns, cuts, bruises, and bleeding, sprained or broken bones, injuries that happen repeatedly over and over, and the person doesn't want to see a doctor about his or her wounds. Child neglect is manifested through a failure to provide for a child's basic needs necessary to sustain the life or health of the child. This does not include failure caused primarily by financial inability unless relief services have been offered and refused. So, for example, to clarify this last point on child neglect, just because a child may come from an impoverished home or a home that doesn't have the financial resources, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're being neglected. The primary financial inability for relief services does not come into play until they're offered and then refused. Elder neglect. Elder neglect is an elderly person who manifests messy or unclean appearances. He or she might have dirty clothes, unkempt hair, or skin rashes. Elder neglect is also a person who is losing weight suddenly or isn't hungry anymore. You can see bed sores. They may even have missing or broken dentures, eyeglasses, or hearing aids. Child sexual abuse. You can see this through several forms. This is perhaps one of the most devastating forms of abuse, even though they're all horrific. Is fondling a child's genitals, penetration, incest, rape, sodomy, indecent exposure, and exploitation through prostitution and/or producing pornographic materials. Elder sexual abuse is when an older person is forced to have sexual contact with another person. It can range from making the person watch pornography or take off his clothes to inappropriate touching and rape. There may be physical signs as well as those you cannot even see. They include torn or bloody clothes, especially underwear, any sexually transmitted diseases, bruises, especially on both sides of the body or around the breast or genitals, and bleeding from the vagina or the bottom. Child emotional abuse. Now, this form of abuse can be a little bit more challenging to detect, but some of the signs are when you observe a material impairment in a child's growth, development, or psychological functioning. Some examples are extreme forms of punishment, such as confining a child to a dark closet, or habitual scapegoating, belittling the child, screaming excessively at the child, or rejecting treatment for a child. Elder emotional abuse can happen as well. It can happen when someone threatens the elder, yells at the elder, calls the elder names, disrespects him or her, talks down to him or her, ignores the elder over and over, and controls where they go, what they do, who they see. Now, I included elder financial abuse as a sign here because a lot of times people will say things, they will hint at some of the abuse that is going on, and this can contain a financial component that we need to report as well. It's when an elder's person's money or property are threatened, and we see this a lot with the elder community. They're very trusting and very kind in terms of giving their resources and their money, and a lot of times that kindness is taken advantage of, so we want to be vigilant about that as well. It can also include overcharging elders for home repair or medical care, and when people or groups ask for donations for fake charities or scam charities. Signs may include large withdrawals from their bank accounts, a new friend who may be taking financial advantage of them, legal documents that have been changed or disappeared, any missing financial statements, unpaid bills, utilities that are shut off, or threats of eviction, and signatures that seem to be forged. So what is domestic violence? Also called intimate partner violence, domestic abuse, or relationship abuse. This type of violence exhibits patterns of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. This includes behaviors that physically harm or arouse fear, prevent a partner from doing what they wish, or force them to behave in ways that they do not want. It also includes the use of physical and sexual violence, threats and intimidation, emotional abuse, and even economic deprivation, where you are, or the person is withholding economic or financial access to their money or their accounts. Many of these different forms of domestic violence and abuse can be occurring at any one time within the same intimate relationship. And it's also important to note that both men and women are victims of domestic violence. This is not gender specific. Recognizing the signs of child abuse. Physical abuse is with frequent injuries such as bruises, cuts, black eyes, or burns without adequate explanations, frequent complaints of pain without obvious injury, burns or bruises in unusual patterns that may indicate the use of an instrument or human bite, and lack of reaction to pain, aggressive, disruptive, and destructive behavior, passive, withdrawn, and emotionless behavior, fear of going home or even seeing their parents or loved ones, injuries that appear after a child has not been seen for several days, and unreasonable clothing that may hide injuries to arms or legs. Recognizing the signs of child abuse that include neglect, obvious malnourishment, lack of personal cleanliness, torn or dirty clothing, stealing or begging for food, child being unattended for long periods of time, the need for glasses, dental care, or other medical attention, and frequent tardiness or absence from school. Recognizing the signs of child abuse for sexual abuse. And we kind of touched on this earlier, but physical signs of sexually transmitted diseases, evidence of injury to the genital area, pregnancy in a young girl. This is so sad, but I have a good friend. Just wanted to pause here and talk about a personal story where I have a good friend who represents children who are foster children as an ad litem. And unfortunately, one of her clients at 9 years old is pregnant. It is very sad, but this is definitely a reality. Difficulty in sitting or walking, extreme fear of being alone with adults of a certain sex, sexual comments or behaviors when they play, knowledge of sexual relations beyond what is expected of the child's age, and then sexual victimization of other children. Recognizing the signs of child abuse for emotional abuse, over-compliance, okay, low self-esteem, severe depression, anxiety, or aggression, difficulty making friends or doing things with other children, lagging in physical, emotional, and intellectual development, and a caregiver who belittles the child, withholding love, and seems unconcerned about the child's problems or issues. Now, here are some signs of domestic violence. This is not an exhaustive list, but a lot of these signs we pulled from the National Domestic Violence website. Tells the person that he or she can never do anything right, shows extreme jealousy of friends and time spent away from the person, keeps a person or discourages a person from seeing friends or family members, insults, demeans, or shames the person with put-downs, controls every penny spent in the household, takes money or refuses to give person money for necessary expenses, controls movement and who the person sees, prevents you from making your own decisions, or tells you that you're a bad parent, or threatens to harm or take away your children, prevents a person from working or attending school, bettering themselves, destroys property or threatens to hurt or kill your pets, intimidates a person with guns, knives, or other weapons, pressures the person to have sex when that is something that the person doesn't want to do, and forces or pressures a person to perform acts sexually that they're not even comfortable with. And lastly, we have pressures him or her into using drugs or alcohol or any substance that can harm their body. So what should I do after seeing these signs, recognizing the signs of abuse? Well, first, you need to try and talk privately with that person who you suspect is in trouble. You can start by saying you think that something is wrong and you want to help. Be kind, be calm, be gentle. If he or she won't answer your questions, it's possible that the person is being abused. And if you feel that the person is in immediate danger, please call 911 immediately. We also have some information that is helpful when filing an abuse report. You need the name, age, and address of the child or person who you suspect is being abused, your name and contact information, obviously, a brief description of the situation and the child or vulnerable adult, the current injuries that you see, or medical problems, or behavioral problems, the parents' names and the names of siblings in the home for a child, the names of relatives in or outside the home, and the name of the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, for an adult, and explain how you know about the situation. When you are gathering information about the suspected abuse, be sure to do it in real time as soon as possible so all the facts are fresh in your mind. Resources and how to report. I previously mentioned calling 911. If it's an immediate, urgent situation, life-threatening, never hesitate to call 911. In Texas, we have two options for reporting abuse to the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. You can call the phone hotline, which is 1-800-252-5400, or you can file the complaint by a secure internet website, and this is probably the best option. It's the quickest, by going to www.txabusehotline.org. Also, another great resource is the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and this is the website here, www.thehotline.org/help. And also, we would like for you to please document the suspected abuse or your interactions in their internal file. That way, if there's any follow-up from the police or we have to recount something in court, we have that information. And lastly, my contact information is listed here. I can be reached via email at lwilliams@gchd.org or by phone at 409-938-2213. Don't hesitate to call me or email me. I'm always happy to talk things through and discuss how we can be of assistance to our community. Thank you.